All right, so you sent over a ton of stuff on this Porsche 718 Cayman GT4 reviews, comparisons, even going way back in time.
Yeah.
But looks like you're really trying to get to the bottom of what makes this car so special, beyond just the hype.
Well, I think what's really interesting is how this car has become like this mythical thing in the car world.
Right.
People are calling it the perfect daily sports car, but there has to be more to the story than that.
Exactly. So let's cut through the marketing and really figure out what makes this thing tick.
Okay.
From how it looks and that engine everyone talks about to what it's actually like to drive the thing, and maybe even what it'd be like to live with one every day.
Yeah, that's the dream, right?
Definitely one day, maybe.
I've always wondered about that GT4 badge.
Yeah.
It's not just a sticker. It actually means something specific at Porsche, right?
Okay, so before we get lost in the details, set the scene for us.
Sure.
What does GT4 actually mean in the Porsche world?
So basically, GT4 is where Porsche takes their already pretty great Cayman and adds in all this track-focused DNA.
Okay.
It's a step up from even the GTS, and it's meant to be equally at home on the track and on the street.
So best of both worlds, like a weekend warrior that you can still drive to work on Monday.
Exactly. Now, if you want to get really serious, there's also the GT4 RS, which takes things even further. But
yeah, and we'll get to that one later.
Yeah.
We got tons of info on the RS here, so we'll dig into it. But for now, let's stick with the quote-unquote regular GT4.
Sure.
What is it about this specific car that has gotten everyone so excited?
One of the biggest things people praise about the 718 Cayman GT4 is its raw, exciting driving experience.
Right.
This isn't some car that numbs you with a bunch of technology. It's about pure mechanical connection.
I read one reviewer who called it a superb distillation of what the Cayman should be. Pretty high praise, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Let's talk about the design.
Okay.
How does Porsche visually make this GT4 stand out from its less hardcore siblings?
Well, I think the GT4's design is a perfect example of functional aggression. So you've got those sleek lines, aero elements, but they're not just for show.
Right.
All those big vents and intakes are super important for cooling that engine, especially when you're pushing it hard.
Makes sense.
And then there's that huge wing on the back.
Can't miss it.
Yeah, that's definitely a statement piece, but it's not just for looks.
I didn't think so.
It provides a ton of downforce, which helps keep the car glued to the road in those high-speed corners.
So the outside definitely screams performance.
Right.
But what about the inside? Paint us a picture of that GT4 cockpit.
Well, when you step inside, you're met with this driver-focused cockpit that's all about business.
Okay.
Those sport seats hug you tight, and they've used really high-quality materials like Alcantara and leather, so it feels premium but still purposeful.
There's been a lot of talk about that small steering wheel in the reviews.
Oh, yeah.
What's the idea behind that?
That small steering wheel is all about feedback and connection.
Okay.
It gives you a really direct feel for what the car is doing, which is what you want on a track.
So they definitely put a lot of thought into the details.
Absolutely.
Now let's get to the heart of it. That engine.
Right.
This is where the GT4 really comes alive, right?
Yeah, sure.
So tell us about it.
Well, the GT4 has this naturally aspirated 4.0-liter flat-six engine.
Mm-hmm.
It's a serious piece of engineering, and it makes an impressive 414 horsepower.
Wow. That's a lot of power for a car this size.
Yeah, and it gets even crazier.
Okay.
The RS version bumps it up to 493 horsepower, and then there's a track-only Club Sport variant that makes a whopping 500 horsepower.
Wait, hold on. So there are 3 different GT4s now.
Yeah, kind of.
Okay, so break it down for me.
You've got the base GT4, then the hardcore GT4 RS, and then the track-focused Club Sport, which is a whole different animal.
Wow, that's a lot of variety.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So what's it like to actually drive one of these things? How does all that power feel?
Exhilarating, for sure.
Yeah.
You know, that flat six sound isn't just about being loud.
Yep.
It's the way it creates this, like, symphony of mechanical noises as you climb through the revs.
I read one review that said it pulls harder and harder as it reaches the upper reaches of the rev counter, and apparently that 9,000 RPM red line is something else.
It's a truly unique experience, and that's one of the things that sets it apart from all those turbocharged cars out there.
Speaking of mechanical bits, what about transmissions? I know there's been some back and forth in these articles about manual versus PDK.
Yeah, that's the age-old debate, isn't it? Sticker paddles.
Exactly. So what are the options here?
Well, with the standard GT4, you get to choose between a 6-speed manual and Porsche's lightning-fast 7-speed PDK automatic.
So there's something for everyone then?
Exactly. Now, if you step up to the RS or the Club Sport, you're only getting the PDK because those cars are all about pure track performance.
Makes sense.
It really just depends on your personal preference and what you're planning to do with the car.
I can see how that would be a tough choice. Both sound pretty tempting. So we've got this powerful engine, different transmission options, and a design that's both aggressive and functional. But what about the actual driving experience? Does this car live up to the hype? Is it all show and no-go? Or is it the real deal?
This is where the GT4 really shines, I think.
Okay.
It's not just about raw speed in a straight line. It's about how incredibly precise and balanced it feels through corners.
We talked about that Nürburgring lap time earlier, being on par with a well-equipped 911 Carrera S.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive for a car in this class.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is how the GT4's mid-engine layout
Yeah.
actually gives it an advantage in the corners. Some say it even feels more balanced than a 911 because of that.
So it's safe to say that the GT4 is a serious track weapon then.
Absolutely.
But let's be realistic. Most people aren't taking this thing to the ring every weekend.
Wrong.
So what about its road manners? Can you actually live with this car on a daily basis?
This is where it gets really interesting, I think, because despite being set up for the track, the GT4 is surprisingly comfortable on normal roads.
Huh. Didn't expect that.
Yeah, you could drive it every day without feeling like you're getting beat up.
One review I read said that the GT4 manages to round the sharp edges off of road scars,
Yeah.
which is impressive for a car that can lap the Nürburgring in under 7 minutes, 40 seconds.
Yeah, it really speaks to how well Porsche engineers their cars.
Right.
They managed to make a car that's both a blast on the track and surprisingly refined for daily driving.
So how did they pull that off? What's the secret sauce?
Well, it has a lot to do with that mid-engine layout we talked about earlier.
Right. Remind me how that works again.
Basically, by putting the engine in the middle of the car, they get near-perfect weight distribution.
Right.
And that leads to neutral handling, incredible agility, and just overall feeling much more connected to the road.
So it's not just about power, it's about how that power is put to the ground.
Exactly. And because of that mid-engine balance, some reviewers even find the GT4 more engaging than a 911.
Huh.
Interesting. They say it's more forgiving at the limit, less likely to bite you if you make a mistake.
That's good to know. Although I probably won't be pushing it that hard.
Probably a good idea.
But anyway, we've established that this car is a performance beast, but it's also surprisingly livable. But there's no getting around it. All this performance has to come with a price.
Of course.
So what are we looking at here?
Yeah. Performance and exclusivity always come with a price tag.
Right.
The GT4 starts at around $106,500, which is quite a bit more than a base Cayman.
Yeah, that's definitely a premium.
And then, as we talked about, the RS and Club Sport models are even more expensive.
So this isn't exactly an impulse buy.
No, it's a serious investment.
But is it worth it? I mean, what are you really paying for here?
That's a good question. What does value actually mean when you're talking about a car like this?
Right.
For a lot of people, the price of the GT4 is justified by its performance, its exclusivity, and just that raw driving experience it provides.
So it's more than just a car. It's like a statement, an experience.
Exactly.
But how does it compare to other cars in this class? I mean, there are some serious competitors out there.
Yeah, the GT4 is up against some tough competition, like the Lotus Emira and the Chevrolet Corvette Z06.
Right.
Each car has its own strengths, but the GT4 definitely holds its own in that elite company.
It's a tough choice for buyers in this segment.
Yeah.
But let's zoom out a bit and look at the bigger picture here.
Okay.
The GT4 has a surprisingly short history, considering how much of an impact it's made on the car world.
It's true. The first Cayman GT4 came out in 2015.
And it was a huge hit right away.
It was praised for its balance, its purity, and its ability to be both a track car and a daily driver, which was pretty rare at the time.
Yeah, it was a car that could genuinely do it all.
And Porsche hasn't rested on their laurels.
Right.
They've kept refining and improving the GT4 over the years.
And the current generation, which they introduced in 2020, is arguably the best one yet.
Yeah, it's got a more powerful engine, improved aerodynamics, and a bunch of chassis and suspension upgrades that make it even better on the track.
It's a car that's evolved into a modern classic.
Definitely.
And speaking of classics, I read somewhere that there's a connection between the Cayman GT4 and one of Porsche's most legendary race cars, the 550 Spider.
Oh yeah, the 550 Spider.
Both cars have that mid-engine layout and a focus on being lightweight.
It's almost like the GT4 is a modern interpretation of the 550 Spider's design philosophy.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
The same principles of agility, balance, and driver engagement that made the 550 Spider a legend are definitely present in the Cayman GT4.
It's like a modern take on a classic formula.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a car that carries the torch of Porsche's rich motorsport heritage, but with all the benefits of modern technology and engineering.
Absolutely.
All right, so we've talked about the performance, the handling, the design, the history, even the emotional connection this car seems to create with drivers. We've explored the different versions, from the base GT4 to the hardcore RS and that track-focused club sport. And we've even touched upon the future of the GT4 and how it might adapt in the coming years with new technology like electrification.
Right.
But before we wrap things up for now, let's bring it back to you, the listener, and leave you with a little something to think about.
Okay.
With the rise of electric sports cars, how will a purist's car like the GT4 adapt and evolve?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Will it be able to hold on to its raw appeal in a world that's becoming increasingly focused on silent speed and instant torque?
Or will it become a relic of a bygone era? A reminder of a time when driving was about more than just getting from point A to point B.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
Only time will tell how the GT4 will navigate this changing landscape of the automotive world.
I'm curious to see what the future holds for this car.
Me too. But for now, I think we've done a pretty good job of unpacking all this information about the Cayman GT4.
Yeah, I think so too.
Hopefully, we've given you, the listener, a better understanding of what makes this car so special.
And maybe even inspired you to experience it for yourself.
If you ever get the chance to drive a Cayman GT4, don't hesitate.
You won't regret it, that's for sure.
It's a car that will make you feel alive, connected to the road, and a part of something truly special.
It's a reminder that driving can be so much more than just getting around.
Well said.
All right, so I think that's a good place to stop for now.
Yeah, I agree.
We'll pick up this conversation in our next episode.
Sounds good.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of the Porsche Cayman GT4.
And until next time, happy driving.
Yeah, it makes you think, with everyone talking about electric cars and self-driving and all that, can a car like the GT4, which is all about pure mechanics, can it still be relevant?
It's a good question. Will it be a classic or just a museum piece?
Yeah.
But before we get too deep into the philosophy of it all, let's get back to the practical stuff. We've talked a lot about how this car performs, but what about living with it every day?
Right. He can't be all track days and top speed runs.
So you decided to go for it. You're going to make the GT4 your daily driver.
Okay.
What are you in for?
Well, first of all, you better not have a lot of stuff to carry around.
Right. Practicality isn't exactly this car's strong suit.
Yeah. It's a small car, which means not a lot of cargo space.
Okay, so grocery shopping might require some Tetris skills.
Maybe.
But what about just driving it around town? Is it comfortable, or are you always fighting the car?
From what I've seen in owner forums and reviews, the GT4 actually strikes a pretty good balance.
Okay.
It's definitely firm. You'll feel the bumps on the road, but it's not bone-jarringly stiff.
So it's not going to rattle your teeth loose on the way to work?
No, not quite.
Okay, good.
You're definitely going to feel connected to the road, which for a lot of people, that's part of the appeal.
Right.
Owners talk about the car's responsiveness, the feedback through the steering wheel, that sense of control.
So it's a car for people who really like to drive, who appreciate those nuances.
Exactly. And it seems like that shared passion creates a real community among GT4 owners.
Okay.
It's like they're not just buying a car, they're joining a club.
I've definitely seen that in the car world, certain cars attract a certain type of person.
Oh, for sure.
And it sounds like the GT4 is no exception.
They organize track days, group drives, even just meetups to talk about their cars.
It's like finding your people, the ones who speak your language.
Exactly.
Speaking of language, let's talk maintenance.
Oh.
The elephant in the room when you own a high-performance car.
Right. Keeping a car like this in top shape is not going to be cheap.
Porsches are known to be pretty reliable, but anything with this much performance potential, things are bound to happen.
Yeah. Regular maintenance is key.
And I imagine those maintenance costs can add up, especially for parts that are specific to this car.
Porsche parts are definitely not known for being cheap.
Right.
But for a lot of people who own GT4s, it's a price they're willing to pay.
It's an investment, right? In the experience, the thrill of driving a machine like this.
Exactly.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit here.
Right.
You mentioned earlier the connection to the 550 Spider, that classic Porsche race car.
Oh, yeah, that's a cool bit of history.
It's fascinating how this modern car echoes the design philosophy of a legend like that.
Both cars have that mid-engine layout. They're both lightweight, and they're all about providing a pure driving experience.
It's like the GT4 is carrying the torch, but with modern technology.
And it does it really well.
But it's not just about the technical stuff, right?
No, it's deeper than that.
It's about a whole philosophy of what a sports car should be.
That visceral connection between the driver and the machine.
Yeah, that feeling of being one with the car.
It's timeless, from 550 Spider to the Cayman GT4.
So while we're on the topic of history, let's talk about how the Cayman GT4 itself has evolved.
Okay.
The first one came out in 2015, and it was a hit right out of the gate.
It was praised for its balance, its purity, the fact that it could be a track car and a daily driver.
A true all-rounder.
Yeah, and Porsche has been making it better ever since.
The current version, the one they launched in 2020, is probably the best yet.
More power, better handling, even more of that GT4 character.
And speaking of different versions, there's one more we need to talk about.
Okay.
The one that takes things to the extreme.
The GT4 RS Club Sport.
This one is all about the track.
Right, absolutely. No compromises here.
So not for the faint of heart or the light of wallet.
The Club Sport is a serious machine with a price tag to match.
It's basically a race car you can buy, right?
Very much, yeah.
Stripped down interior, roll cage, racing seats, fire suppression system, the whole 9 yards.
And of course that 4.0-liter flat-six engine, but with even more power than the regular RS.
This is a car for pushing limits for experienced drivers who know what they're doing.
But if you're up for the challenge, it's an incredible experience.
Okay, so we've talked about performance, design, history, the emotional side of this car.
Yeah.
We've looked at all the different versions, from the base GT4 to the RS and the Club Sport.
Mm-hmm.
We even touched on the future and how electrification might change things.
Right.
But before we wrap things up, I want to leave you with one last thing to think about.
Okay.
As the world changes, as we move towards electric cars, where does a car like the Cayman GT4 fit in?
Yeah, that's the big question.
Will it become a relic of the past, a reminder of when driving was about mechanical connection and feedback?
Or will it adapt? Will it find a way to carry that spirit into the future?
We'll have to wait and see.
I can't wait to find out.
But one thing's for sure, the Cayman GT4 is a special car.
Absolutely.
It deserves to be celebrated for its purity, its performance, its commitment to the driving experience.
Whether it's the base GT4, the RS, or the Club Sport, there's a version of this car for anyone who loves to drive.
That's what makes it so great. It appeals to the heart of what it means to be a car enthusiast.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Okay, I think we've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah, we have.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Porsche Cayman GT4.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you've learned a thing or two about this incredible machine.
And maybe even gotten a little bit inspired to go out and experience it for yourself.
If you ever get the chance, don't hesitate. It's an experience you won't forget.
Until next time, keep the passion for driving alive.
Yeah, it's a tough one to answer.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling Porsche, they've always been innovative, right?
Yeah.
And they really seem to get what makes a sports car great.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they'll find a way to keep the spirit of the GT4 alive, even with, all this talk about electric cars and everything.
Yeah, I think so too.
They always seem to find a way to adapt, but still stay true to their roots.
Right. They've done it before. I'm sure they can do it again.
It's funny, we started this whole thing trying to figure out what makes the Cayman GT4 so special. And I think we actually got pretty close to an answer.
I think so too.
It's more than just numbers on a spec sheet, It's really about the feeling, the experience. Mm-hmm.
That connection between you and the car, which honestly, that's something you don't find in a lot of modern cars anymore.
Yeah, it's getting harder to find.
It's that raw thrill of driving a car that's made to be pushed,
Yeah.
A car that gives you feedback, that makes you feel something.
The GT4 is like a reminder that driving can be like an art form.
Right.
This dance between you and the machine.
And that there will always be a place for cars that are all about that pure driving experience above everything else.
Exactly.
And that's what makes the GT4 so great, I think.
Yeah.
It speaks to, that core part of being a car enthusiast.
Your passion for driving.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you ever get the chance to drive a Cayman GT4, really take it all in.
Yeah, don't take it for granted.
Feel that engine, experience the handling, that feedback it gives you.
It's a good reminder that driving can be more than just getting from point A to point B.
It can be an adventure.
Yeah, passion.
A way of life, even.
All right, well, that about wraps it up for this deep dive.
Yeah, I think we've covered it all. Thanks for joining us on this journey into the world of the Porsche Cayman GT4.
We hope you enjoyed it.
And maybe, who knows, maybe this has sparked something in you.
Maybe a little GT4 fever.
If you ever get the chance to drive one, take it.
You won't regret it.
Until next time, keep the passion for driving alive.